Picture this for a moment. You went to bed at a reasonable hour. You slept a full 8 hours, maybe even 9. No alarm dragged you out of a deep dream. You woke up on your own. And yet, when your feet hit the floor, you felt like you had barely slept at all. That heavy, foggy, dragging exhaustion that makes a cup of coffee feel completely useless. If that sounds familiar, you are not imagining it. And you are absolutely not alone. Here is what most people never hear. Waking up tired after a full night of sleep is not simply about how many hours you spent in bed. There is something else going on, something biological. And for adults over 50, it becomes increasingly common in ways that doctors are only now beginning to fully understand. The good news is that once you know what is actually happening inside your body while you sleep, and more importantly, why it starts going wrong as we age, there are real, practical steps you can take that may make a meaningful difference in how you feel every single morning. Welcome to Dr. Ethan Carter, your channel for honest, evidence-based health information focused on helping you live longer, feel stronger, and stay as independent as possible. If you have not subscribed yet, please take a moment to do that right now. It costs nothing, and it means these practical health conversations will keep showing up for you rather than getting lost in the shuffle. Now, before we get into the heart of this, let me introduce you to 3 people whose experiences are going to help bring all of this to life. First, there is Raymond. He is 68 years old, a retired electrical engineer from Boise, Idaho. Raymond spent decades solving complex problems with precision and logic. He is sharp, methodical, and honestly a little skeptical when anyone tells him something is wrong with his health that he cannot measure himself. He has been living with type 2 diabetes for about 6 years and mild high blood pressure for even longer. His wife has been gently pushing him to talk to his doctor about his exhaustion for months now, but Raymond keeps insisting he is fine and that tired is just what getting older feels like. Then there is Connie. She is 61, a former librarian from Asheville, North Carolina, who recently retired early after her first grandchild was born. Connie is curious by nature, the kind of person who reads everything she can get her hands on before making any decision. She has been managing hypothyroidism for several years, which is a condition where the thyroid gland does not produce quite enough of the hormone that helps regulate your body's energy. She woke up one morning last spring feeling like she had been hit by a truck despite sleeping well, and that was when she decided to take her sleep quality seriously for the first time. And finally, there is Marcus. He is 72, a retired high school football coach from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Marcus coached for more than 30 years, built a career on discipline and routine, and has always prided himself on being physically strong. But since his retirement 3 years ago and a recent diagnosis of moderate sleep apnea, which we will explain in detail in just a few minutes, Marcus has felt like a different person. He falls asleep in his recliner every afternoon without meaning to, wakes up with headaches in the morning, and has started quietly worrying that something more serious is going on. All 3 of them woke up tired this morning, and here is the reason that genuinely surprised each of them when they learned it. Sleep is not one single thing. It is actually a series of stages your brain cycles through multiple times every night, each one doing a very different job. During the lighter stages, your brain sorts and files the day's memories. During the deepest stage, the one scientists call slow-wave sleep, your body does its most important physical repair work. It releases growth hormone, rebuilds muscle tissue, regulates blood sugar, and gives your immune system time to catch up. During the rapid eye movement stage, often called REM sleep, your brain processes emotions, strengthens learning, and does work that appears to be critical for long-term memory and mental clarity. The problem? As we age, the structure of sleep changes significantly. Adults over 50, and even more so after 60, spend less time in deep, slow-wave sleep and less time in REM sleep. They spend more time in the lighter stages, the kind of sleep that leaves you feeling like you barely rested at all. So you can lie in bed for 8 or 9 hours and still wake up feeling drained because your brain and body never made it to the stages where the real restoration happens. This is where Raymond's story starts to matter. When Raymond's wife finally persuaded him to mention his fatigue at his last doctor's appointment, his doctor did not just nod and say that was normal aging. Instead, she asked a series of questions that Raymond had not expected. Did he snore? Did he ever wake up gasping? Did he feel like no matter how much sleep he got, his brain stayed foggy until mid-morning? Raymond said yes to all three. What his doctor suspected, and what a sleep study later confirmed, was obstructive sleep apnea. This is a condition where the soft tissues at the back of the throat relax too much during sleep and partially or fully block the airway. When that happens, breathing becomes shallow or stops briefly, sometimes dozens of times per hour. Each time breathing is disrupted, the brain sends an emergency signal that briefly wakes the body just enough to reopen the airway. Most people never remember these arousals in the morning, but they are enough to prevent the brain from ever settling into deep or REM sleep. The result is that you spend 8 hours in bed and wake up feeling like you sprinted a marathon in your sleep. Sleep apnea is far more common than most people realize. Researchers estimate it affects a significant portion of the older adult population, and many cases go undiagnosed for years, sometimes decades. It is not just about snoring. Many people with sleep apnea do not snore loudly, or they sleep alone and have no one to notice. The warning signs to watch for include waking up with headaches in the morning, feeling excessively sleepy during the day even after a full night of sleep, difficulty concentrating or remembering things, waking up with a dry mouth or sore throat, and feeling irritable or emotionally flat without a clear reason. Marcus recognized nearly every one of those signs the moment he heard them listed. His diagnosis had come after his daughter visited for a weekend and heard him stop breathing during the night from across the hallway. That was the moment that pushed him to finally get evaluated. But here is the part that stopped Marcus cold. His doctor explained that untreated sleep apnea does not just make you tired. Over time, it increases the risk of high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, and irregular heart rhythms. It can interfere with blood sugar regulation, which matters enormously for people who already have or are at risk for diabetes. And there is growing evidence suggesting chronic sleep disruption of this kind may be linked to increased risk of memory problems over the long term. That conversation changed how Marcus thought about his condition. He had assumed his apnea was mostly an annoyance. He had no idea it was quietly putting strain on his heart every single night. Now here is something that surprises a lot of people. Sleep apnea is not the only reason older adults wake up exhausted. There is another factor that almost never gets discussed, and it has to do with a tiny gland in your brain roughly the size of a pea. The pineal gland produces a hormone called melatonin. You have probably heard of it, maybe even taken it as a supplement. Melatonin is your body's natural signal that darkness has arrived and sleep should begin. But as we age, the pineal gland produces less melatonin, and it often produces it later in the evening than it used to. What this means in practical terms is that your internal clock, which scientists call the circadian rhythm, gradually shifts. Many older adults find that they feel sleepy earlier in the evening and wake up earlier in the morning than they used to, sometimes as early as 3 or 4 in the morning, wide awake and unable to get back to sleep. This is not insomnia in the traditional sense. It is a change in the timing of your biological clock. Connie knew this pattern well. She would fall asleep easily, sometimes before 9 in the evening, but by 4 in the morning she was wide awake with no chance of getting back to sleep. By the time her grandchildren arrived for a Saturday visit at noon, she was already running on fumes. She had assumed she was simply an early riser, a quirk of personality. What she did not realize was that her body was getting less total sleep than it appeared, and that the sleep she was getting was increasingly concentrated in the lighter stages. When she brought this up with her doctor, the conversation touched on something Connie had never considered before. Exposure to light in the morning, specifically bright natural light, is one of the most powerful tools available for anchoring the circadian rhythm. When light enters the eyes in the morning, it sends a signal through specialized nerve pathways directly to the brain's internal clock, essentially telling it that the day has begun. This helps regulate when melatonin production turns on in the evening. For older adults whose circadian rhythms have drifted, consistent morning light exposure, even something as simple as sitting near a bright window or stepping outside for a short walk shortly after waking, can gradually help reset that internal timing system over several weeks. Connie started doing exactly that. Every morning after her coffee, she would take a 20-minute walk around her neighborhood in Asheville while it was still cool. Within a few weeks, She noticed she was no longer waking at 4 in the morning. She was sleeping until closer to 5:30 or 6, getting up feeling genuinely more rested, and making it through her grandchildren's visits without needing to retreat for a nap by 2 in the afternoon. Small habit, meaningful difference. But there is another piece of this puzzle that often catches people completely off guard. It involves something you would not typically connect to the quality of your sleep at all. It has to do with temperature. Your body's core temperature naturally drops as part of the process of falling into deep sleep. This temperature drop is not just a side effect of sleep, it is actually part of what triggers the brain to shift into those deep, restorative stages. As we age, the body's ability to regulate temperature during the night becomes less precise. Older adults are more likely to experience disrupted sleep because of temperature fluctuations, either feeling too warm during the early part of the night or too cold in the early morning hours. A bedroom that is even a few degrees too warm can meaningfully reduce the amount of deep sleep a person gets without them ever realizing why. Sleep researchers generally suggest a bedroom temperature somewhere in the range of 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit as a reasonable target for most adults, though individual comfort varies. A cooler room, combined with light, breathable bedding, gives the body a better environment for achieving and maintaining the deeper stages of sleep. Raymond's wife mentioned this to him after watching a segment on television, and Raymond, true to his engineering instincts, immediately started experimenting with the thermostat. He was skeptical but methodical. He lowered the bedroom temperature by 4 degrees and kept track of how he felt each morning. After 2 weeks, he grudgingly admitted that he was waking up with noticeably less of that dense, brick-like fatigue he had come to accept as normal. Now here is the part that many people never connect, and it is one of the most important points in this entire conversation. Medications. There are several very commonly prescribed medications that significantly affect sleep architecture, meaning they change the structure and stages of sleep in ways that leave people feeling unrefreshed even after a full night. And because many older adults take multiple medications, the effects can compound. Beta blockers, which are widely prescribed for high blood pressure and heart conditions, suppress melatonin production in some people. Diuretics, often called water pills, can cause nighttime bathroom trips that fragment sleep repeatedly. Certain antihistamines and sleep aids that are sold over the counter cause a heavy, sedated feeling rather than natural sleep, and they tend to reduce time spent in REM sleep. Some antidepressants affect sleep architecture as well. Even certain blood pressure medications taken at specific times of day can interfere with sleep quality in ways that are not always obvious. This does not mean these medications should be stopped or changed without medical guidance. Absolutely not. But it does mean that if you are consistently waking up exhausted and you take any regular medications, it is worth having an honest conversation with your doctor, specifically about whether the timing, dosage, or combination of your medications could be contributing to poor sleep quality. Doctors can sometimes adjust timing or make other modifications that improve sleep without compromising the treatment of the underlying condition. That conversation is worth having. Marcus brought this up with his cardiologist after learning he had sleep apnea. It turned out one of his medications was being taken at a time of day that was not ideal for his sleep. A simple adjustment made a difference he could actually feel. Let us talk about alcohol for a moment, because this is one of the most widespread misconceptions about sleep among older adults. A glass of wine or a cocktail in the evening seems to help people fall asleep faster, and for many people it does. But alcohol fundamentally disrupts sleep quality during the second half of the night. As the body metabolizes alcohol, it triggers a rebound effect that causes lighter, more fragmented sleep, reduces REM sleep, and increases the likelihood of waking up in the early morning hours. So while alcohol may shorten the time it takes to fall asleep, it shortens the total amount of restorative sleep a person gets. The result is that familiar feeling of waking up at 3 in the morning, mind racing, unable to drift back off. For older adults, there is an additional concern. The liver processes alcohol more slowly as we age, which means even a moderate amount can have a more pronounced effect on sleep than it did 20 years ago. And because alcohol relaxes the muscles of the throat and airway, it can significantly worsen sleep apnea in people who have it, even mild or borderline cases. Connie had a glass of red wine most evenings, something she had enjoyed for years and considered harmless. Her doctor did not tell her she needed to stop completely. Instead, the suggestion was to move that evening glass to earlier in the afternoon or evening, giving the body several more hours to process it before sleep. Connie tried it for a month and was genuinely surprised by the difference in how she felt in the morning. There is also the matter of hydration, and this one is worth spending a moment on. As we grow older, the body's thirst signals become weaker and less reliable. Many older adults walk around mildly dehydrated on a regular basis without feeling particularly thirsty. Mild dehydration affects sleep in ways that are not always obvious. It can cause muscle cramping during the night, increase feelings of discomfort, and contribute to fragmented sleep. Dehydration also tends to concentrate the urine, which can increase the urge to urinate during the night, even if you have not drunk a large amount of fluids recently. The practical advice here is somewhat counterintuitive. Drinking more water during the day, specifically in the morning and early afternoon, rather than close to bedtime, helps keep the body better hydrated overall, while reducing the likelihood of nighttime bathroom trips. Reducing fluids in the 2 to 3 hours before sleep, while staying well hydrated during the rest of the day, tends to work better than avoiding fluids entirely out of a fear of nighttime trips to the bathroom. Raymond started paying attention to how much water he actually drank each day and realized he was consistently falling short of what his body needed, partly because his diabetes medication had masked some of his thirst signals. When he made a deliberate effort to drink more water during the morning and afternoon, his nighttime bathroom trips decreased, and he reported waking up feeling slightly more alert. Now, this next point is one that genuinely surprises most people, and it is related to something that happens in the muscles and the nervous system. Restless leg syndrome is a condition that affects a meaningful number of older adults and is significantly underdiagnosed. It causes an uncomfortable, sometimes described as crawling or tingling or aching sensation in the legs, usually beginning in the evening or at bedtime. The sensation creates an irresistible urge to move the legs, which temporarily relieves the discomfort. For people who have it, getting comfortable enough to fall asleep and stay asleep can be a nightly struggle. Many people with mild or moderate restless leg syndrome have never been diagnosed because they assume it is just poor circulation, arthritis, or the natural discomfort of aging. Related to this is a condition called periodic limb movement disorder, where the legs jerk or move repeatedly during sleep. Unlike restless leg syndrome, the person is often not aware this is happening, but these movements can cause brief arousals from sleep that fragment rest and significantly reduce time spent in deep sleep, leaving the person exhausted in the morning without any obvious explanation. Both conditions are diagnosable and in many cases treatable. Iron deficiency is one of the most common underlying contributors to restless leg syndrome in older adults, and it is something that can be checked with a simple blood test. There are also medications that doctors can consider for more severe cases. The point is simply this: if you regularly experience uncomfortable sensations in your legs at night that make it hard to settle into sleep, or if someone who has observed your sleep has mentioned that your legs move or jerk repeatedly, those are things worth mentioning to your doctor. Marcus had noticed for years that he sometimes kicked his wife during the night. She had always teased him about it, but when he mentioned it during his sleep evaluation, it turned out he had a mild case of periodic limb movement disorder alongside his sleep apnea, and both were being addressed together as part of his treatment plan. He had no idea the two were connected. Let us spend a moment on something that has an enormous and frequently overlooked impact on sleep quality in older adults, and that is physical activity. The relationship between daily movement and nighttime sleep is more direct than most people realize. When the body expends physical energy during the day, it builds what researchers informally call sleep pressure, the biological drive to enter and stay in deep sleep. Without adequate physical movement during the day, that pressure remains low, and the brain has less reason to cycle deeply through the restorative stages of sleep. The research on this is quite clear. Regular, moderate physical activity, the kind that raises the heart rate somewhat but does not exhaust you, is associated with better sleep quality, more time in deep sleep, and reduced nighttime waking. Walking is sufficient. Gentle swimming, chair exercises, yard work, and light resistance training all count. The goal is consistent movement, not athletic performance. Timing matters somewhat. Exercise that is vigorous and done very close to bedtime can temporarily raise body temperature and alertness, making it harder to fall asleep. But moderate activity in the morning or afternoon appears to benefit sleep without causing that effect. Most people over 50 find that a consistent daily walk of 30 minutes or more, taken in the morning or early afternoon, makes a noticeable difference in how they feel when they wake up the next day. Connie had essentially stopped exercising after retirement. She told herself she was still active, doing housework and chasing her grandchild, but in reality she was spending far more time sitting than she ever had before. Her doctor encouraged her to think of her morning walk not as exercise for her heart or her weight, which were also benefits, but primarily as medicine for her sleep. That framing made it feel more necessary to her, less optional, and the results reinforced the habit. There is another topic that deserves honest attention here, and it connects to both sleep and to a number of other health concerns that are common among older adults. That topic is anxiety and worry. The period between 55 and 75 is filled with genuinely significant life transitions. Retirement, which can bring a loss of daily structure and purpose, children moving away, the illness or loss of close friends or a spouse, new health diagnoses, financial concerns. These are real stressors, and they have a real and measurable effect on sleep. When the mind is processing worry or unresolved stress, the nervous system remains in a state of low-level alertness that makes it very difficult for the brain to transition into deep restorative sleep. This is not weakness, it is biology. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which researchers and sleep specialists now consider the most effective long-term treatment for chronic sleep difficulties, specifically addresses the thought patterns and behaviors that keep the nervous system activated at night. It is available from trained therapists, and there are also structured online programs that have been shown to be effective. It does not involve medication, and it does not require a dramatic lifestyle overhaul. For many older adults who have struggled with sleep for years, it is genuinely worth asking a doctor about. Raymond was not the type to discuss worry or stress openly, but when his doctor asked him directly whether he ever found himself lying awake thinking about things, he admitted that since his diabetes diagnosis, he spent a lot of time at night quietly worrying about his future. His doctor acknowledged that response as completely understandable, not something to be dismissed or medicated away immediately, but something worth addressing thoughtfully. They discussed some simple techniques for managing that mental noise before bed, including a brief writing exercise where Raymond spent 10 minutes before sleep jotting down the things on his mind and a short list of small things he planned to do the next day. Research suggests this kind of structured worry time before bed actually reduces the amount of intrusive thinking that happens during the night because the brain feels it has addressed the concerns rather than suppressing them. Raymond thought it sounded too simple to work. He tried it anyway. He would not say it was a miracle, but he did admit to his wife, after 3 weeks of trying it, that he was waking up less in the middle of the night and that the first hour after waking felt a little sharper. Now, here is something worth mentioning that does not get nearly enough attention, and it relates to a nutrient that a significant portion of older adults are low in. Vitamin D is produced by the skin when exposed to sunlight, and it plays a role in a surprisingly wide range of body functions, including the regulation of sleep. Low vitamin D levels have been associated with poorer sleep quality, shorter sleep duration, and more daytime sleepiness in research on older populations. Because many older adults spend less time outdoors, and because the skin becomes less efficient at producing vitamin D with age, Deficiency is quite common in this age group. This is not a recommendation to start taking high-dose supplements without medical guidance. Vitamin D levels can be checked with a simple blood test, and a doctor can advise on whether supplementation is appropriate and at what dose, since very high doses carry their own risks. The point is simply that if you have not had your vitamin D level checked recently, it is a reasonable conversation to have with your healthcare provider, particularly if you are experiencing significant fatigue alongside poor sleep. Connie's thyroid condition had been well controlled for years, but her doctor ran a broader panel of blood work during her fatigue workup and found that her vitamin D was on the lower end of the normal range. A modest supplement, appropriate for her situation and cleared by her doctor, was one of several changes she made. She was careful not to attribute too much to any single change, but over the course of several months, her energy levels genuinely improved in ways that felt different from before. There is one final piece of this conversation that ties everything together, and it is perhaps the most important habit of all for protecting sleep quality as we age. Consistency. The single most powerful thing most people can do for their sleep, and one of the most frequently overlooked, is maintaining a consistent sleep and wake schedule, including on weekends. The body's circadian rhythm is a clock, and like any clock, it works best when it is set to a reliable schedule. When bedtime shifts by an hour or two on weekends, or when naps are long and unstructured during the day, the circadian clock loses its anchor and the quality of nighttime sleep suffers accordingly. Long daytime naps, particularly those lasting more than about 20 to 30 minutes or taken in the late afternoon, can reduce what we discussed earlier as sleep pressure, making it harder to fall into deep sleep at night. Short naps of 20 minutes or less, taken in the early to mid-afternoon if needed, are generally less disruptive to nighttime sleep for most people. Going to bed and waking up at approximately the same time every day, 7 days a week, is something that seems almost too obvious to mention. But it is one of the most commonly violated habits among older adults, often in subtle ways that people do not recognize as problematic. Raymond was staying up 2 hours later on weekends to watch television. Connie was allowing herself to sleep in on the mornings her grandchild did not come over. Marcus was napping for 90 minutes every afternoon in his recliner. All three of them were unknowingly undermining the consistency their sleep systems needed. When each of them made the effort to anchor their schedule, not perfectly, but consistently enough to make a difference, the improvements in their morning energy began to stack with the other changes they had made. Marcus started his CPAP therapy for his sleep apnea. A CPAP machine, which stands for Continuous Positive Airway Pressure, delivers a gentle flow of pressurized air through a mask worn during sleep, keeping the airway open so breathing does not become disrupted. It is the most commonly prescribed and most effective treatment for obstructive sleep apnea. Many people resist it at first because the idea of wearing a mask during sleep feels strange or uncomfortable. Marcus was one of those people, but his doctor encouraged him to give it a genuine try for at least a month, adjusting the mask fit with the help of the supplier until it became comfortable. Within 2 weeks of consistently using his CPAP, Marcus reported something he had not experienced in years. He woke up and felt like he had actually slept. Not foggy, not dragging, actually rested. His afternoon napping became far less necessary, his morning headaches disappeared, and the quiet worry he had been carrying about his memory and mental sharpness began to ease, because his brain was finally getting the deep sleep it had been deprived of for so long. If you have been diagnosed with sleep apnea and have not been consistent with CPAP therapy, or if you stopped using it because it felt uncomfortable, please bring that up with your doctor. There are several different mask styles and machine settings that can be adjusted to improve comfort. For some people with mild sleep apnea, a specially fitted oral appliance from a dentist who specializes in sleep disorders can be an alternative worth discussing. The key point is that leaving sleep apnea untreated carries real risks, and the treatment, when it fits properly, can genuinely transform the quality of daily life. As we bring this conversation toward a close, let us take a step back and look at where Raymond, Connie, and Marcus are now. Raymond is still skeptical by nature, but he has become a convert to the idea that sleep is medicine. He talked to his doctor about his medication timing, started cooling the bedroom by a few degrees, began his morning journaling habit, and has been far more intentional about drinking water earlier in the day. His morning energy is not perfect, but it is meaningfully better, and his blood sugar control has also improved slightly, which his doctor noted may be partly related to getting more restorative sleep. Connie now walks every morning in Asheville's quiet streets, does not drink wine in the evening, goes to bed and wakes at the same time every day, and has genuinely rebuilt her relationship with sleep. She told her daughter recently that she finally feels like herself again for the first time since she retired. And Marcus, the retired coach who spent decades pushing young people to be disciplined and consistent, finally applied that same discipline to his own health. He uses his CPAP every single night without exception. His sleep schedule is anchored. His energy has returned in ways he did not expect. He even started a short morning walk with his neighbor, something he had not done in years. None of their transformations happened overnight. None of them required a complete life overhaul. What they required was honest attention to what was actually disrupting their sleep, guidance from their doctors, and the willingness to make small, sustainable changes and give those changes enough time to work. If you're waking up tired despite sleeping 8 hours, please do not simply accept that as the price of getting older. It does not have to be. Talk to your doctor. Ask specifically about your sleep quality, your sleep structure, and whether a formal sleep evaluation might make sense. Ask about your medications and whether their timing could be affecting your rest. Ask about your vitamin D levels. Consider whether your bedroom temperature, your evening habits, your daily activity, and your weekend schedule might be working against you. You have every reason to sleep well. You have every reason to wake up with energy. And the steps to get there are more achievable than you might think. If this video helped you think about your sleep in a new way, please share it with a friend, a spouse, a sibling, or anyone you care about who might be going through the same thing. And before you go, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever figured out something that genuinely improved your sleep quality? Maybe a change in schedule, a conversation with your doctor, or a habit that finally stuck? Leave it in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Please remember this video is for educational purposes only and should not replace professional medical advice. Always consult your physician or another qualified healthcare professional before making changes to your medications, diet, exercise routine, or treatment plan.